Back in Alan's day, it was a man's world. But now, times have changed.
When I was a little kid, I used to play with Hot Wheel cars instead of dolls like any normal girl.
Terrain Tamer is looking for parts specialists to train up. And Alan Gray is the toughest trainer around.
Wow, look at the cat dragged in.
Can Alan leave his old school thinking behind?
Yeah, so we've got to get some overalls with bumps in them.
Can these girls prove that when it comes to the tools, they're as capable as any bloke? Tune in to find out.
Oh, girls, the last few days we've pulled a few car parts apart and put them back together. Yeah. What you've got to keep in mind though, the bits you use, they vary in quality. They might look the same, but they vary in quality. So it's our job to make sure that we're going the best parts we can get. Brent here, who will tell you through how we go about that.
Okay, you ladies are with me today. So what we're going to do is give you a sneak peek into our R&D department and the importance of the quality control and the testing that goes into every Terrain Tamer part. Particularly with such a wide range, every new part needs to meet the same standards, so come with me. Okay, this is my favourite part, or my favourite test, mainly because it's our new smart coils. So this is a fatigue test, so we need to make sure that the coil spring does exactly what we designed it to do. So it needs to have a memory, so it returns exactly back to the place where it started, and to do that after 10, 15, 20 years. These coils are actually made using One Steel and made in Australia, and we actually give an owner's lifetime warranty.
How long roughly do you test them for?
Anything up to 7 days, so it can be a long, long process, just this one coil spring.
And how many repetitions?
About 2 million is the benchmark. So normally we would set this for 2 million. It takes about 7 days to do. The interesting thing is that you can see the coil actually gets thinner the further down the spring you can see. So the bottom springs here are working much harder than the coils at the top. For us, that's a true progressive load. So it doesn't need to wait for the coils to touch before it starts doing its job. Now this is the fatigue test for the coil spring. Let's take you over to the leaf springs. Okay, this is our compression test machine. This is really important for the leaf springs in particular, because we need to make sure they do exactly as what they're designed to do. So in this case, we're measuring the force on top and to see when the second stage actually is activated. That's important to our customers because as they're driving around with an empty load, it's essentially on a comfort ride, but as soon as they put a large load on the vehicle, that second stage will be activated and be able to hold its height of the vehicle still. So much firmer leaf spring from that point on.
So what weight is the second stage activated?
As you can see from the graph, it comes in at 250 kilograms.
And is this a front or a rear?
This one's rear, and that's why the second stage kicks in. On the front, we wouldn't have the second stage.
Okay.
So what are you guys doing here? That's terrific bad. And that beats landing underneath a truck driving along to see what happens to the springs, isn't it? That's great.
It's a little bit easier and much, much safer than what we used to do in the old days, and a lot more accurate. So come on, let's go and see these other machines. Got some exciting stuff for you. Okay, as part of the Terrain Tamer tooling program, once we develop the tool, we need to make sure that the composition of the part is correct. So this is really important with this machine. It's a hardness testing machine. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the hardness all the way through the part is correct. If we make it too hard all the way through, it makes it brittle. We just need to make it soft on the inside, but hard on the outside so that it can handle the wear and tear that our customers put it through. So what we do is we take a cross section of the CV joint like this, and we measure all the way through to the middle of the part to make sure that it's correct. Okay? So what we'll do is we'll actually put it through a machine like this, and then it will actually give us a measurement at that particular part. This process will take about an hour because we'll take a measurement all the way through to the middle. Because this will take so long, this is one we've done earlier. You can see the dots, the very fine dots, all the way through to the middle of the part. This is very, very important, and then we compare it to its OE equivalent and to make sure that it exceeds OE equivalent. All right, let me take you to this next machine, and that's where we start to blow things up. This is how we test a Terrain Tamer axle shaft. The hard part about this test is we actually have to reduce the shape. It needs to be a particular shape, and it's actually called a dog bone. So we reduce it down to a shape like this, and then once we get it on the machine, there's 3 points that we're looking for. So the testing machine will actually measure the force and the extension of the part, okay? The first point that we're looking for is the yield point here, okay? So once this part is extended to a certain degree, actually it's almost like a rubber band it will return back to its original shape. But once we extend it too far, once it goes past this yield point, it will never return back to its original shape, okay? So it's very important we know where this sits. The second point that's very important as well is the ultimate tensile strength. Now this is really the force that the part's able to take. How strong is the part, which is really important for us also, because out in the four-wheel drive world, we put it in a lot of tough conditions. And finally, we need to know the breaking point. So from this point, it'll just drop straight away and ultimately the part's failed from there. So they're the three main points that we look for and compare them to an OEM equivalent to make sure that Terrain Tamer is the best in class. All right, now before we start, we need to make sure that we've got these goggles. So can you all both take one of these? And make sure you give this set to Alan and make sure you force him on him before we start the test.
Okay.
The dog bone is in place and the machine is being prepped for the test.
You gotta put your glasses on, Al. Yeah. You have to. Al.
And we're ready to begin. It's almost impossible to tell by staring at it, but the steel is beginning to be stretched. The graph shows the steel heading towards its yield point. Once the yield point has been reached, the extensiometer, which measures the elongation, is removed.
Here it goes, little neck.
Now it's simply a tense waiting game for the big bang. It's quite difficult to notice any stretching in the steel when it's happening in real time. However, when the footage is sped up by 600%, it becomes very obvious.
Oh, in the middle. Look in the middle.
Yeah.
The graph very clearly shows that the steel has reached its ultimate tensile strength and is now heading towards breaking point.
Okay, girls, well, that's the last test. Hopefully you learned how things are done. All right, well, let's head off.
All across Australia, Terrain Tamer have you connected.